Algebra 1 STAAR release. So let's go ahead and get started. Number 1. Which expression is equivalent to the square root of 147? Now, if I was going to go ahead and do this by hand, of course I would need to compare them. I would need to compare them and take a look at the factors and different things like that I could maybe pull out. I could also run a test in my calculator. Now, so let's go ahead and take a look at this. So square root of 147. So I asked myself, is it evenly divisible by anything? And I suspect it might be divisible by 3. So I'll go ahead and I'll rewrite it like this. Once I have this, I can go ahead and split these apart. I know the square root of 49 is positive 7. And this appears to be the simplest that it's going to get. I want to go ahead and test this out in my calculator. As I've explained before, whenever I do this test, if I type it in directly like we normally would with other items, we end up getting an error. 7. Whoops, hold on. Okay. Now, for some of them it may work, but for others it may not work. So my suggestion whenever you're dealing with radicals to verify that they are exactly the same is to type them in individually. You should receive the exact same number here. In the 2018 test, there is a very similar problem where doing it in this way will not provide an answer. So just make sure and do it this way whenever you are working with radicals. So my correct answer is most certainly B. Number 2. A drummer and a guitarist each wrote songs for their band. The guitarist wrote, and I'll actually go ahead and translate this, the guitarist wrote 8 fewer than twice the number of songs of the drummer, and together they wrote a total of 46 songs. So they gave me 2 equations. I'm going to take a look at all of these, and it looks like answer choice F is going to be the only one that matches. Number 3. Which graph best represents the solution set of y is less than or equal to negative 4x? So, whenever I look at this problem, my first thought is to say, all right, I see based on this, it should be a solid line and it should shade down. So I look, that's a dash line, dash line. This guy is shaded down up here, and this one is shaded up. So the only answer it could be is answer choice C. So I can eliminate it without even verifying that it is the correct graph. I can do that by just looking at the features. Number 4. The graph of f of x is translated to make the graph of g of x. What describes this transformation? Well, now I see here that this is inside with the x, so this tells me right 7.5. However, we might not remember that. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to plug these into my calculator. And I'm just going to compare them. So I'll go ahead and go over here. I'll start a new graph. I'll head down to F4. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to type in G4. And I look at the graph. These are almost identical to each other, except this is moved over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and a half to the right. Exactly as we could have predicted just looking at the equation. So I'll go ahead and look at this, and it says a horizontal shift to the right, 7.5 units. To the left, no. And it didn't move up or down. So my correct answer has got to be F. 5. So here it says a set of weights includes a 4-pound barbell and 6 pairs of weight plates. Each pair of plates weighs 20 pounds. If X pairs of plates are added to the barbell, the total weight of the barbell and plates in pounds can be represented by this equation. What is the range? So they're not asking me to plug in X's. To tell me which X's they can be plugged in. They're asking me to determine that and plug each one of them in. So here they said that there are 6 pairs of weight plates, meaning I can plug in none, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These are my X's, but what about my Y's? I'd have to plug in each one of these. I don't want to do all of that. So instead, I could go ahead and start a new graph, and I'll call it F5. And I can take a look at the table. So here for 0, it's 4. 1 is 24. 2 is 44. 3 is 64. 4 is 84. 5 is 104. 6 is 124. So I have my range. I could have also, conversely, went to my calculator page. And I could have stored this as F5 of X. And then I could have just called up each one. And I would have received the same exact answers. So my correct answer is answer choice B. The area of a rectangle is 54x to the power of 9, y to the power of 8 square yards. If the length of the rectangle is that, which one represents the width? So in order to get that, I need to divide these guys. And of course, I'll break them apart by what kind they are. So I'll deal with my numbers, then my x's, then my y's. 9 minus 3, 8 minus 4, and I've got my answer. Now I just want to verify that I have the correct answer, that it is H. So I'll head over here, and I'm going to go ahead and store my X as 2 and my Y as 3. Now, of course, you could manually type in the numbers instead of doing this, but the reason why I do this is because it makes it a little bit easier for me to make sure that I'm typing these guys in a little bit as exact as possible. So I'll go ahead and start typing in the very first one. I'm going to start by making that little fraction. So 54 x to the power of 9 y to the power of 8 all divided by 6 times x to the power of 3 times y to the power of 4. Now, I did not mean to press enter. So, now that I've typed in my original equation, I'm going to go ahead and put an equal sign, and I'm going to say, all right, calculator, is that going to be the same as this answer that I got? And it says true. These are exactly the same. Now, of course, like I said, I could have typed this in by changing these guys to 2's and 3's. But as you can see, whenever I do that, it's a little bit more complicated. And it makes it just a little bit more confusing. Now, this can be especially confusing if you have more than one variable. So yes, it's totally possible, but this just looks like a much cleaner read to me, and it's easier for me to understand. So whichever way you think is easiest is what you should do. My answer choice H is most certainly correct. Number 7. The total number of seats in an auditorium is modeled by this equation, where X represents the number of rows of seats. Okay, so X is my rows. How many rows are there in the auditorium if it has a total of 416 seats? So my Y value is seats, my X is rows. So they told me there's 416 seats. That is a Y value. So how in the world do I solve this? Well, I can't unless I make it equal to 0. So I'll move it over to the other side. And now I have something. If I wanted to factor, I could do that. But I really just need the x-intercepts. I need to find out which number of rows can bring about 416 seats. So I'll go ahead and head over here, and I'm going to run my polyroot. So 2, -6, -416. It's going to type in the equation for me, and it gives me two values. I can either have -13 rows or +16 rows. Now, in real life, we cannot have -13 rows. So my answer has got to be +16. Number 8. The graph of an exponential function is shown on the grid. Which dashed line is the asymptote for the graph? My asymptotes for my exponential functions in Algebra 1 always are at the x-axis. And this has an equation of y equals 0. That asymptote, that is the correct answer, is answer choice S. Now, the only time that it's going to deviate from this is in later math classes, but for now, always remember, this is where your asymptote is located. Number 9. Which situation best represents causation? No other influence is changing it. When the number of bus stops increases, the number of car sales decreases. Well, there could be other factors. The economy could go down, people could lose their jobs, maybe people already bought all the cars they need. So this is an association. When fewer firefighters report to a house fire, the damage caused by the fire is decreased. Well, that's really interesting. However, if we have less firefighters, maybe there's less damage. But there could be other things. Maybe they only send out a few whenever there are small fires, or fires that are not really damaging, or fires that are not really out of control. So again, I would label that as an association. When ice cream sales increase, the incidence of sunburn increase. That's interesting, but could it also be that it's summer, it's not cloudy, people are going outside more, people are forgetting to put on sunscreen? Lots of different things. That's an association. When it rains several inches, the water level of the lake increases. I can't see anything else that would make that happen. That is causation and my answer. Number 10. They want to know what function is represented by this graph. So for this one, I would run a quadratic regression. So I look at this. I'm going to go ahead and find a couple of points that go exactly through the corners of the boxes. I have 3 points. I need at least 3 to run a quadratic regression. And go ahead and head over here. I'm going to open up a new spreadsheet. These will be my x's for number 10, my y's for number 10. Now I can go ahead and run my quadratic regression. I'm going to select my x's, select my y's. I'm going to rename my function just in case I need it later. And here is my equation. So negative x squared minus 3x plus 4. Let me head back over here and compare these. And it looks like the only answer choice that matches is going to be answer choice G. Next one. What is the solution to this equation? Of course, we can totally get the answer by NSolve, but I'm going to go ahead and work it out by hand first. I need to go ahead and distribute, so 8x minus 6x plus 12 equals 3x minus 18. Let's go ahead and combine like terms. Let's go ahead and get all of our x's together. And let's go ahead and move that 18 out of the way. And I got an answer of x equals 30. But I want to verify this in my calculator. So I'll head over here to my calculator screen. And now I'm going to go ahead and do a numerical solve. I'm going to type in my equation exactly as I see it on the test. I'm going to put comma x because my calculator's not as smart as we are. What we have to do is we have to tell it which variable it's looking for. And it is x equals 30. So we got the answer correct. It is most certainly answer choice C. Number 12. So this is a very weird problem. So I need you guys to make sure that you're paying super attention, okay? So a lifeguard earns $320 per week for working 40 hours, plus $12 per hour worked over 40 hours. They can work a maximum of 60 hours. And they want to know which one of these graphs is consistent with that. So, first of all, I'm looking at the graphs. I'm noticing that the domain is number of hours worked over 40, not total number of hours worked. So that means I should start off at $320. And it looks like H and J are no longer contenders. Now I figure out that I work $12 per hour. So if I worked an extra 20 hours, that would be $240. So I should go up all the way up to $560. So only answer choice G makes sense. Next one. All right. A shoe company is going to close one of its 2 stores and combine all the inventory from both stores. These polynomials represent the inventory in each store. Which expression represents the combined inventory of the stores? So, of course, I can go ahead and set this up. I can run a test to verify. So in my calculator, we can do a test or a graph match to verify my answer. So let me go ahead and take care of this first one. I'll go ahead and add these 2 guys together. Actually, I'm going to line them up like that because they already did it like a chart. So here, 7/2 g squared minus 4/5 g plus 15 over 4. I'm going to look, and I see that answer choice A is going to be the closest. I just want to verify that these are the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and run a test first. So I'm going to go ahead and store a value as G. I'm going to store 2. Remembering we always want to do 2 and up. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to type in the very first part. So 1 over 2 multiplied by G to the power of 2 plus 7/2 plus 3g squared minus 4/5 g plus 15 over 1 over 4. And I'm going to say, hey, is that the same thing as 7/2 g to the power of 2 minus 4/5 g plus 15 over 4? And it says true. On the other hand, I could have also have typed this in utilizing my graph. So I'll head over here and I'll call this F13. And of course, we have to change these guys to X's because we can't graph anything but X's. And here is my graph. And whenever I find my solution, it should look exactly the same. And I'll call that A13. And look at that, they lay directly on top of each other, meaning they are exactly the same. So, answer choice A is correct. So here they gave us a graph of a quadratic function named f, and they're asking us what the y-intercept is. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the y-axis. This is not something you need to do in the calculator. I see my y-intercept here, and it is located at 0, 4. So I would bubble in 4. Next one, number 15. A particular type of cell doubles in number every hour. Which function can be used to find the number of cells present at the end of h hours if there are initially 4 of these cells? Of course, my A is where I start, and my B is my decay or growth factor. I saw here that it started at 4 and it doubles every hour. So I'm looking, and it looks like answer choice B is going to be the only correct answer. Number 16. What is the slope of the line represented by this standard form equation? I'm going to go ahead and attempt to get this y by itself. I'm going to move my 5x over. And I'll divide by my coefficient. Exciting move, great divide. And I see here that my slope is 5 over 12. Answer choice J. If I wanted to verify this, I could go ahead and type these into a LinSolve, and I should have a C in my answer. And look at that. They are exactly the same. So my correct answer is definitely J. Number 17. Which expression is equivalent to this? They're asking me to factor. So there are lots of different ways to do this. I can graph match. I can test. Or I can do a polyroot and back work it. But let's do this the proper way and go ahead and factor. So 6 times 5, and I need two numbers that add up to give me 13. So 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10. There are my numbers. Let's go ahead and split apart my b value, I'm going to factor out from just the first set. So I'm going to factor out from just the first set, and then I'll factor out from the second set. I'm looking to verify that the insides are the same, and they are, so I can go ahead and combine like terms. I look over here at my answer choices. I see that answer choice C matches. I just want to verify that these are exactly the same. So I will go ahead and I will show you all three ways. Way number one, I go ahead and graph my original equation. Now I graph my answer. They lay exactly on top of each other. That means they're exactly the same. My other way is to use the test feature. I will store a value of 2 for x. Now I can go ahead and type in my original equation and ask my calculator if it is equal to the factors that I found. And it says true. I also could have ran a polyroot and gotten the two x values. From there, I can backtrack and when I get it equal to 0, that is one factor. Two factors. So I proved it 3 different ways. All right, number 18. A bus travels 2 different routes, the green route and the blue route. The routes are different lengths. On Monday, the bus traveled the green route 6 times and the blue route 5 times for a total of 52 miles. On Tuesday, the bus traveled 12 times on the green route and 13 times on the blue route for a total of 119 miles. Now, of course, I could go ahead and solve this by hand. I'll multiply this guy up here by -2 so I can do an elimination. Now I can go ahead and add these two guys together. And of course, get rid of that coefficient. And I'll find out that the blue route is equal to 5 miles. But I'm looking for the green route, so I got to plug it back in. I'll go ahead and do an exciting move. Great divide. And I'll find out that my green route is 4.5 miles. I just want to verify this in my calculator. Because this is a system of equations, I will run a LinSolve. Now, I'm going to go ahead and call them G and B, just to make it easier for me to understand. However, if you want to leave it as X's and Y's, you're more than welcome to do so. It will give you the same exact answer either way. And look at that. My green route is 9/2, which is 4.5. We got that one correct. Number 19. The table shows the heights and lengths of separate rectangles. What does the correlation coefficient A student is ordering a flower arrangement. She could choose any combination of roses and carnations for her flower arrangement. She does not want to spend more than $30. Roses cost $3 each. Carnations are $2. Which inequality represents all possible combinations of roses and carnations? So I'll go ahead and formulate this, and I'll ask myself, can I get 29, 30, 31 to spend? 29? Yes. 30? Yes. 31? No. So my correct answer is answer choice B. 26. They want to know my rate of change, my slope. So this is kind of a difficult problem because they really don't have any that go exactly through the corners of the boxes. So we could just kind of estimate. So I'm going to look for one that's about as close as it can possibly get. And it looks like going down 20 and going over 3 is approximately our slope. That's going to give us, closest answer is going to be F, 27. The value of y is directly proportional to the value of x. As soon as I hear that, this is my first thought. I can set up a proportion, and I can also calculate this constant of variation. So if y is 35 when x is 140, what is the value of y when x is 70? So I can go my proportional equation setup. I can go ahead and cross multiply. And I can go ahead and isolate my y. And I'll find out that y has a value of 17.5. I can also do this in NSolve. So if I go ahead and I start a new NSolve, I'm going to type in the first half of the equation as well as the second half. I have to put comma y to let it know what I'm looking for. And I got exactly the same answer. So we got this one correct. Number 28. Which expression is equivalent to this? So here they're asking us to factor. Now, I could go ahead and do a graph match or a test. And I can also use a polyroot to backtrace this. So I'm going to go ahead and just factor this normally. So a times c, negative 13. And this tells me that I have one negative, one positive, and that the negative is larger. And there are my numbers. So now I can go ahead and split this apart. Now I can factor from just the first set, factor from just the second set. I can verify the insides are the same. And finally, combine like terms. And it looks like answer choice F. Now, if I wanted to verify this, I could do a polyroot that would tell me that m is equal to 15 and m is equal to negative 2. So if I go over here, I can go ahead and run my polyroot. There are my same exact answers. I can also go ahead and just store 2 as my value for m and type in the two equations to verify that they are exactly the same. I'll say, hey, calculator, is that going to be the same as? And it gave me a true. Now, I could have also have verified this using my graphing skills. So I'll go ahead and type in the original one, remembering that we always want to graph this with x's. So there's my original graph. I'm going to go ahead and type in the second one. And look at that, it lays directly on top of it. So we got this one correct for sure. 29. The line graphed on the grid represents the first of two equations in a system of linear equations. If the graph of the second equation in the system passes through these 2 points, which one is true? So if I was doing this by hand, I would say, all right, negative 12, positive 20, positive 4, positive 12. And then I would go ahead and connect them. And it looks like these two guys are going to be parallel and there would be no solution. But I just want to verify this. So I can go ahead and run a regression and get both of these and then do a lin solve. So I'll take the first line. Let's go ahead and run a regression on that. Whoops. So these will be my x's from line A on number 29, my y's from line A on number 29. Okay, and now I'll go ahead and run my regression. I will select and here is my first equation. Y equals negative 1/2 x plus 14. Okay. So I'll go ahead and I'll run a regression on the second one as well. Let's go ahead and find some points that go exactly through the corners of the boxes. Here's one at negative 4, comma 12. And over here at 12, comma 4. So I'll go ahead and put these in. These are my x's from line B on number 29, my y's from line B on number 29. Now I'll go ahead and run my regression. I'll select the appropriate x's and y's. I'm going to rename my function. And here I have y equals negative 1/2 x plus 10. Now, just based on that information, I see that these two guys are parallel. They've got the same slope. But I'm going to do this anyways. Let's go ahead and run a lin solve and let's figure out what it says. So y equals negative 1/2 x plus 14. Y equals negative 1/2 x plus 10. No solution found. Exactly what we got when we did it by hand. So 100% certain, my answer is C. Number 30. What is the domain of this function? This is a quadratic function. Always, all real numbers for my domain. The only time that you will see it not be that is if the graph has breaks in it. They did not identify any breaks, so this is all real numbers. I could have also graphed it and taken a look at it. So I'll head over here. I'll go ahead and graph it. F of 30, 9 minus x to the power 2. Okay, so even if I kept on zooming out, it looks like my x's are just going to keep on heading out this way. So, again, all real numbers. Number 31. So a student used this formula to show the balance in a savings account will increase over time. What does the 5.00 represent? Well, anytime we have an exponential equation, we always have our initial value, which also serves as my y-intercept. And over here is going to be my growth, decay, or whatever fancy word we can come up with it. So if I look at this, I can parallel these, and I see that 5 is really just an A. It's the initial amount. So let's look at this. The interest the savings account will earn, no. The annual interest rate, the number of years, starting balance. Answer choice D. 32. Which ordered pair best represents the location of the y-intercept? So I see here it's at approximately -2, so 0, -2. Answer choice G. I could have run a regression and then looked for the B value, but this is much simpler. Number 33. Researchers in Antarctica discovered a warm sea current under the glacier that is causing the glacier to melt. The ice shelf of the glacier has a thickness of approximately 450 meters when it was first discovered. The thickness of the shelf is decreasing at a rate of 0.06 meters per day. Which function can we use? So I'll go ahead and start up my function. We're starting at 450 meters and we're taking away 0.06 meters every single day. So I'm looking at all of my options and it looks like only answer choice A, because this is not going to multiply by both of them. It's taking away and not multiplying by both of them. So it's got to be A. Next one. What is a positive solution to the equation? So for this one, I can solve this by radicals. I could do a lot of different things. But what I'm going to do is I am first going to attempt to do this by radicals. So I'm going to move this 3 over. Now I'm going to multiply both sides by 3/1. Now it looks super simple. I'll take this square root. And I remember, wait a second, every square root has 2 answers. So my answers are +3, -3. They only want the positive one, +3. I can verify this. I could go ahead and graph it. And I'll see here on a graph trace. Let's see. Come on, calculator. Graph trace. Be my 0 located at -3 as well as my 0 located at +3. For the shorter route, I could have also have ran a polyroot. And look at that, the same exact answer. So we got this one correct. Number 35. The amount of fertilizer in a landscaping company's warehouse decreases at a rate of 3% per week. The amount of fertilizer in the warehouse was originally 78,000 cubic yards. So we're starting out remembering we always format these equations like this. This is my initial amount, and here is going to be my growth or decay. So that means my initial amount of 78,000, and we're going to decrease at a rate of 3% every week. So this is what my equation should look like. So I look at all of these. These guys have this totally wrong. They put them in the wrong places. And here we have decay and growth. This is decreasing. It's got to be answer choice C. Number 36. What is the equation of a line that passes through this point and has a slope of 0? So, remembering, we have 4 different slopes. Positive, negative, zero, undefined. Now, as far as these two guys, undefined is always x equals some number. 0 slope is always y equals some number. So, even if I took this and I use point slope form, let's say I didn't remember any of this information that I just went over. So based on this information, I would know that it's automatically y equals 7. However, I could go ahead and plug in these values and still get the same thing. So I'll change that to a positive. I'll go ahead and multiply it out. Let's move my 7. And oh boy, exactly the same answer. So even if you don't remember this, you can figure it out. Number 37. Which ordered pair is in the solution set of this? So if we were going to do this by hand, we could of course go ahead and graph it and test each point. We can also just run a test in the calculator. So I'll go ahead and first start by graphing this. Positive 4 on the y-axis, up 1 over 3, and I'll repeat that pattern until I run out of graph. In the opposite direction, I go down 1, 3 to the left, and I'll keep repeating until I run out of graph. I see that this is a solid line, so I'll go ahead and draw that in. And I also see that it's y bigger than. We're shading up. So now I need to test my points. -6, +1. No. -1, +6. Yes. +6, -1. No. +1, -6. Also a no. So my correct answer must absolutely be answer choice B. I can verify this with my calculator. So if I head over here, I'm going to go ahead and type in the equation exactly as I see it. I'm going to go ahead and highlight it, remembering that on your calculator you have to hold this button down and kind of drag your finger to highlight. Then I'm going to hit Control-C to copy it. Okay? So highlight, copy. Now I'm going to go through and I'm going to change each one of these. So 1 and -6. False for the first one. Let's try the second one. Control-V to paste. -1, +6. -1. Oh, I flipped them around. Wrong way. Okay. Sorry. Over here would be +6 and -1. This one is not B. True. That's the answer that we got. Let's go ahead and try C. -1. +6. Also false. Let's go ahead and try the very last one. -6 and +1. Also false. So our correct answer was most certainly B. Number 38. Here they're asking me which one of these is a function. Which one of these is not a function? So whenever we're asking about functions, we're only dealing with the x's. We want to make sure that it has no repeating x's. So functions, no repeating x's. Okay. So I'm going to take a look at each one of these, and I see that these are all different. This is a function. I see these guys are all different. Function. I see down here, I see two of them that match. Not a function. And over here, they're all different. That's also a function. I am still answer choice H. All right. Number 39. A projectile launched into the air from the ground. The table shows the height of the projectile at different times. Based on the table, which function can be used to describe the model in this situation? So this is obviously going to be a regression, a quadratic one. So let's go ahead and get that run. So I'm going to go over here, start my new spreadsheet. X is from number 39, Y is from number 39. I'm going to type in all of those values. Okay, so now I have them all in. Let's go ahead and run that quadratic regression. I'll go ahead and change the name of my function. And look at that, I have my regression. So I see here that it is negative 4.9x squared plus 295 approximately x plus 0.6. So let's take a look at our answers. No. Maybe. No. No. My answer has got to be B. Number 40. Which value makes this equation true? So for this particular one, I see that there are decimals. Of course, in my calculator, I can perform an NSolve. However, because these are two decimal places, I can do a couple of different things. I can convert them to fractions. I can multiply by 100. I can do any number of things that would help me. So I'll just multiply everybody by 100 to just get away from those crazy decimals. All right, so I got this. Now I'll go ahead and start distributing. Now remember, of course, you can do this a different way if it makes more sense, but this is just what I thought would be easy for me. Now I'm going to go ahead and start collecting everything. I'm going to move all these x's over here to get them together. Now I'll go ahead and start my exciting move. Great divide. And I find out that x has a value of negative 56. But let's go ahead and let's just test this utilizing my NSolve. So I'll head over here to my calculator page. I'm going to go ahead and start a new NSolve. Comma x, we got to tell it who it's looking for. And look at that, the same exact answer that we got. So we got number 40 correct. Number 41, which expression is a factor of this? So I'm going to go ahead and factor this by hand, but I could also use a polyroot to verify. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and do this. So 36, negative 15, that tells me it's going to be two negative numbers. There are my numbers. Now I can go ahead and start separating out my B value. I'll go ahead and factor from just the first set. I'll factor out from just the second set. I see that the insides are exactly the same, so I'll go ahead and combine like terms. And there's my answer. Answer choice A. I should get an answer of 2 over 3 and 1 over 6. Let's verify. So here, I'll go ahead and do a polyroot. And whenever I tested it, I got exactly the same thing as I got here. That 2/3, 1 over 6. I could also just run a test. So I'll go ahead and I'll store 2 as my x value. Now I can go ahead and type in my original equations. And don't forget to put your multiplier between them because sometimes it gets a little bit confused. And I'm going to say, hey, calculator, is that going to be the same thing as 3x minus 2 multiplied by 6x minus 1? And yes, it is. So we definitely got that one correct. I can also verify that these are the correct factors by graphing my original one. And verifying that a graph of my factors looks exactly the same. And look at that, they lay directly on top of each other, so they are exactly the same. 42. The graph of the linear function g is shown on the grid. What is the 0? They want to know an x-intercept. So I look. It is located at -6. That's my answer. I could have also ran a regression and solved for it numerically, but that's way too much work. Number 43. Which quadratic function in vertex form can be represented by the graph that has a vertex at this and passes through this point? So, the way that I would go about solving this is, first of all, I see how they've written this. And this vertex is h, comma, k. Those are the same thing that are in my equation. So if I plug those in, remembering that h is always going to change its sign, it should look like this. I should have a -3 and a -7. So that one does. That one does not, does not, does not. It's got to be answer choice D. I could also graph it and just verify that these points are located in the table. So let's go ahead and do that for answer choice D. So there's my graph. Of course, we can't see it right now, but that's all right. We need the table. And at 1, it should be -10. That's correct. And at +3, it should be at -7. That is also correct. Therefore, we have gotten this question correct. Number 44. Which inequality best represents my domain? So here I'm taking a look at this and I say, all right, I see it's continuous, so I'll go ahead and get this set up. And I'm looking and I see -9, +2. So I'll say -9, +2. The 2 is going to have an extra line. The 9 will not. So I know that I can also eliminate this. Those are range. So I look at my answer choices and I compare them carefully. I see that F is going to be correct. Number 45. A student graphed f of x equals x and g of x equals f of x plus 3 on the same coordinate grid. Which statement describes how they are related? Well, let's pretend like I forgot my rules. I'm going to call this f45 of x and g45 of x is equal to f45 of x plus 3. Let's see what happens. So I'll start a new graph. There's my original equation. Let's go ahead and do the second one. And look at that. It looks like it just moved up 3 spaces. 1, 2, 3. And that's consistent with what I know. That adding 3 to the end will move it up 3. So let's look at these. The graph of f is shifted 3 units up to create the graph of g. Yeah, that sounds about right. The graph of f is steeper. No, they have the same steepness. If I was a person walking up here, it would be just as hard to go up the blue one as it would be the black one. Shifted down? Of course not. And they're talking about that steepness again, so my answer has got to be A. Number 46. Which equation best represents the axis of symmetry? I just find the direct middle of it, and I make a line to cut it exactly in half. This is my axis of symmetry. And its equation is always going to be whatever number it touches on the x-axis. My answer is G. Number 47. If P of x is equal to that, what is the value of P of 11? So, of course, I could go ahead and just write this in like this. And go ahead and start simplifying. And I'll get 626. And if I wanted to do this in my calculator, I could just go over here and store in this equation. And I'll store this as P of x. And then I'll say, hey, what's P of 11? 626. Same exact thing. So we got this one correct. 48. Number 48. So here, first thing I'm going to do in order to find these two equations is I'm going to look for some points that go exactly through the corners of the boxes. I'm going to use the x-intercept and the y-intercept for line K2. And I see here that my y-intercept is 4, so there's my b value. And in order to move between those points, I have to go down 4, right 9. There's my first equation. So I'll write that down here. Now I'll go ahead and find my second one, K1. I see here that its y-intercept is located at -2, and I'm going to look for any other point that goes exactly through the corners of the boxes. And it looks like it does there. I always read left to right, so I start at this point, up 3 over 1. Now I have my second equation. But of course, they're going to be super tricky. And they're not going to allow us to use it like this. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change this guy over to standard form. I'm going to divide everybody by -1 to get that x coefficient positive. And I end up with my first equation. There it is. And I don't see anybody else with it. So it's got to be answer choice F. But let's just verify with this guy. So over here, I'm going to go ahead and just multiply everybody by 9. Let's go ahead and move that 4x over. And I ended up with a matching equation. I can verify my work or even do the entire work by plugging in these 2 points for K2, running a regression, getting my equation, doing the same thing for K1, and then transitioning them by doing what we just did. Now, of course, I want to verify this and just make sure that these guys are the same. Let's make sure we did all of our math correctly. Where did my calculator go? There we go. So I'm going to head over here, and I'm going to start a new LinSolve. So I'll go ahead and put in that first equation. I got a C. That tells me that those are exactly the same. They have infinite solutions. Let's go ahead and try the second one just to verify we did that guy correctly. And yes, we also did. So answer choice F is most certainly correct. Number 49. Which statement about this graph is true? So the graph has a vertical asymptote. We have never, ever talked about that. So no. The graph crosses the y-axis at 2/9. No, that's not true. There's the y-intercept. The graph has an asymptote at y equals 1/3. No. It's always at y equals 0. Always the x-axis. That is my asymptote for these. Now, I want you guys to remember that. That's super important. Now, for other things in the future, that may change. But in this class, asymptote is always at y equals 0. The graph decreases from left to right. Yes, it's a decay graph. Answer choice D. I could have also graphed this and tried to infer some of these same features. Number 50. The table represents some points on the graph of a linear function. Which equation represents the same exact relationship? So, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and calculate my slope. I'm going to use the easiest points they have. I see double negatives. I'm going to go ahead and change them to positives. I find out that my slope is 12. That eliminates these two guys. Now I can go ahead and look at the two equations that are left over. And I find the point that has the 20 and the negative 268. I see the negative 268 as a y, so it should be on this side, not on this side. Therefore, my correct answer is H. Now, my other way to verify this is for us to go ahead and run a linear regression. So I'll go ahead and head over here. These will be my x's from number 50, my y's from number 50. And over here. Whoops. All right, now I'll go ahead and run my linear regression. And I get this equation, y equals 12x minus 28. Now I want to verify that this guy and this guy are the same. Let's do a LinSolve. That'll tell us whether or not they are exactly the same equation. So my equation that I got by running my regression and the equation that they gave me. And look at that. They are exactly the same. H is most certainly the correct answer. 51. Which expression is equivalent to this? Well, let's go ahead and solve this by hand. I'm going to start distributing in. Now I can go ahead and multiply these two guys together. And I have an answer. It looks like it's answer choice B. But let's verify this with a test. So I'm going to head over here. I'm going to store a value of 2 for my variable x. And now I'm going to go ahead and type in the original equation. Sorry, guys. Didn't mean to hit enter. And I'm going to ask it, hey, is this the same thing as 49 times x to the power of 10? And it is. So I got this one correct. 52. This function can be used to determine the cost in dollars for a taxi ride of X miles. What is the rate of change of the cost in dollars with respect to the number of miles? So here they're asking me, what is the slope? What is the slope? So I look at this equation. There's only one item multiplying my x. It's 1.50. So I know that that's automatically my slope. Even if I went through the process of going through and simplifying this, I would still see that 1.5 is going to be my slope. So it's got to be answer choice F. 53. Which graph best represents a function with a range of all real numbers greater than or equal to -6? So it can go as far down as -6, but it has to be bigger. It cannot be smaller. So I'm looking at A. I see it goes down to 0. I don't see anything equal to -6 here. So A is incorrect. Let's look at B. C. Yep, that's definitely a -6. Okay. Over here, this is less than or equal to -6. Less than or equal to 0. It's got to be answer choice C. All right. I think this is the last one. 54. What is the value of x in this solution to this systems of equations? All right. So, first thing, I got to figure out what I want to do with this. I think I will go ahead and rearrange this one into standard form. And then I will go ahead and multiply it by -1 so I can eliminate the y's. So 1/2 x minus y equals 4. And then I will copy down that first equation. And let's add them together. 5/2 x equals +3. I'll go ahead and multiply by my reciprocal. And I end up with an answer of x equals 6/5. Pretty good. But let's go ahead and verify that using a ln solve. So I'll go ahead and type in that first equation. Y plus 2x equals -1. And y equals 1/2 x plus 4. And my x solution. Oh, did I type this in wrong? Y plus 2x equals -1. Y equals 1/2. Hold on, let's go back through this one more time. I just want to make sure, since the calculator's telling me I'm wrong. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and move over this -1/2 x. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and bring my other equation down. I'm going to multiply this guy by -1 first. Okay. Now I'm going to bring that first equation down. And these guys are canceled. Oh, here we go. I'm going to multiply by my reciprocal. I think I made an error here. Multiply by my reciprocal. And I find out that my answer is x equals -2. This is why you should always check your work. All right, guys. That's it for the 2017 STAAR release.